How's it going, everybody, and welcome back into the SFS channel. My name's Gavin, and today we're going to be talking some early season trade targets here with NFL kickoff right around the corner. These are players I see being potential league winners down the stretch with some big-time upside that could hit later on in the season and ultimately give us a really strong push at those league championships. So it's going to take some patience for some of these players, but at the end of the day, I think it's going to be a big-time payoff and a big-time reward for those of us who go out here and make these moves. So if you've got trades in your own leagues and you would like some advice with those, drop them down in the comment section below, and either Eric or myself will get back to you as soon as possible with that information. So without further ado, drop down and give today's video a like. Click that subscribe button if you're new around here. Turn the bell on so you're never late for a new episode, and get all access to our content here that we post throughout the week. And let's hit that intro and get right into today's video. Alrighty, before we get into our first player today, if you are looking for extra help in your fantasy leagues, Eric and I have you covered here on the channel with SFS Gold, which is our exclusive membership platform here on the channel. We've got you covered. We'll set your lineups for you. It's just over $1 a week, so if you want to take advantage of that service, you can get yourself for the entire first month of the NFL season for under $5. Our weekly positional rankings, again, like I said, you'll get those lineup advice privileges. You'll get exclusive member-only content in the SFS Community Discord, which is a free service, but on top of that, you get guaranteed results and guaranteed responses, rather, to your questions on that platform. So go check that out. That's something you should take advantage of this fantasy season. But with that being said, Michael Thomas of the New Orleans Saints is my first player to talk about today. This one's simple. We're going to have to be patient here. Hopefully you have some sort of an injured reserve service in your league where you can host him on there for a little bit of time and give him some opportunity to recover. He was placed on the team's injured reserve list, which will hold him out for the team's first 6 weeks. But if you can have that patience, if you can get by for the first chunk of the season without having Michael Thomas in your lineups, this can pay off big time on the back end. Jameis Winston was the best case scenario for Saints pass catchers in terms of their fantasy values this season as a quarterback who can push the ball down the field. And we've seen Michael Thomas be the best wide receiver in fantasy in years prior, and now he's going to have the chance to do that again this season. Thomas, again, like I said, 6 games, it's a significant amount of time to be without him, to miss him. But if you have the depth at the position, you could get yourself a top 12 producing wide receiver down the stretch, and that can pay major dividends for you come playoff time, come those big week matchups that you need to win down the stretch of this season. Jevonte Williams for the Denver Broncos is the next name up here. This is a high upside running back play down the stretch. You could potentially be buying yourself into a workhorse running back that right now is looked at more at as a 1-2 punch type player with Melvin Gordon. I believe sooner rather than later, Jevonte Williams will grasp full hold of this backfield and be the dominant 3-down back there. It's just a matter of time here. We have to give him an opportunity to see the field and to prove to the coaching staff that he should be utilized over Melvin Gordon. And the longer you wait to make this deal, the more his value is going to rise and the higher the price will be for you on the back end. So again, maybe week 1, I think he's got a tough matchup. I think Denver might struggle against New York here in this week 1 game here. But going forward, when he gets more volume, when he gets more reps, more experience under his belt, the upside is going to skyrocket, and at the end of the season, Jevonte Williams might be one of those players we're looking at as a league-winning running back. Same deal here with Trey Sermon. Raheem Mostert's healthy right now, and when he's out there and available to be used, Raheem is going to get touches. He's going to have work in this offense. But Trey Sermon is a do-it-all type player. He can be used on the goal line. He can be used first and second down as well as a change of pace back and a physical back on the goal line. There's no real glaring flaw in his game that would keep him off the field. And my fear, if we wait on trading for Trey Sermon, if you haven't already went out and drafted him or acquired his services for your team, is the 49ers play the Lions week 1. That, to me, is a talent mismatch. The Lions are probably going to be beaten by multiple scores, and if that's the case, we might see Trey Sermon get more play time than expected very early on this season. If he gets out there, proves himself, shows that he's worth it, they might give him more reps, more touches in the weeks coming here. And then again, just like Jevonte Williams, that's going to raise his trade price and make him more difficult to acquire later on this season. That's why we got to capitalize early on here and get these players while we still can for minimal value, for minimal price, because I see these guys as having constant value. Michael Thomas, going back to that first example, the longer you wait until his return from his ankle injury, the more and more his value is going to grow. It's not going to decrease in any amount between now and the time he returns to the field, barring a setback to his ankle injury. So something to be mindful of here. This is relatively time sensitive, so you want to go out and make these deals while you still can. DeVonta Smith for the Philadelphia Eagles, another player who I think can step up and assert himself as the top threat in his passing offense. I don't see another legitimate threat to out-target and to see more passes come his way than Smith in this Eagles offense. Jalen Reagor, a former first-round pick, has draft capital invested in him. Obviously, the Eagles are tied to him for the next few years. I don't see it. I think DeVonta Smith is a clear option here, where very early on this season, he can take complete control of this offense and become Jalen Hurts' favorite target seemingly overnight. You talk about an easy matchup week 1 against the Falcons. I would be afraid that if you don't make this move prior to Sunday, now this isn't to say you should be overpaying for these players. You have to give up something for these valuable assets. But after this week 1 matchup against Atlanta, there is the chance that DeVonta Smith has a big boom game, has an early breakout, and after that, he's off to the races. And he could just be this year's Justin Jefferson, although he's not quite as underrated of a player as Jefferson was this time last season. Antonio Gibson for the Washington football team, I think his upside is right up there with some of the best this year. We talk about a dynamic pass-catching running back who can also get the job done on the ground and as a rushing threat on the goal line. He's got all the makings to be a fantasy superstar, an elite 3-down back that can just go out there and be a dynamic player that doesn't really get taken off the field for any situational offense. That is a fantasy goldmine. He is going to put up a lot of points this year. The only thing that held him back was getting himself established in this offense last year and then losing some time to injuries, which played a big role in his fantasy outlook down the stretch of last season. So not the easiest matchup in the world this week against the Chargers, but something he could do a very nice job of here. I think sooner rather than later you want to go out and make this deal, because Gibson could very well finish as a top 12 back quite easily this season with the volume and the usage I expect him to have in this offense. David Montgomery. This is one that I love here. I think you can get him at a discounted price now because he's got a tough matchup this week. Maybe you even want to wait. This is an example of a player I think maybe you wait until after Sunday against the Rams in a tough matchup to go out and make this trade for. I think he's going to struggle, and I think the Bears offensive players as a whole will struggle. So keep an eye out for Allen Robinson in next week's trade video, because if he struggles against Jalen Ramsey, he might be a target to go out and look after. But David Montgomery is going to see a lot of volume this season, a lot of touches. He'll be involved in both the rushing and receiving game, and this is another player who can score touchdowns as well. There's not a lot he can't do. The matchups are going to be the main difference maker here early on the season, but once things lighten up down the stretch, Montgomery should be putting up top 12 running back numbers, and this is a player I'm very high on down the stretch. Jerry Jeudy for the Denver Broncos, another player with a tough matchup this week, but what I loved from him in his rookie season, 113 targets. It's a lot of volume for a rookie player. He was very underwhelming with those numbers, only caught, I believe it was 53 of those passes, but that should improve this year. If he can take the steps forward, become more consistent of a player, and haul in more of those passes, he should become a more dependable wideout and a player that we can rely on more and more this season with potentially elevated quarterback play as well. And Jerry Jeudy has reportedly been Teddy Bridgewater's favorite wide receiver all throughout training camp. So again, a lot of stuff I like here. The upside is very great for Jerry Jeudy. Brandin Cooks of the Houston Texans. This is a player that I think you can actually get for fairly cheap right now. And he does have a favorable matchup this week, so he could potentially have a boom performance. So maybe you want to go out and make this deal early as well. But there's not a whole lot of competition for Cooks to work with this season. This goes back to some of those other players last year. For example, a Jamison Crowder who was banged up and injured and wasn't producing at times. But when he was out there wasn't a whole lot of competition for him to get targets and reps in that offense. That's kind of how I see Brandin Cooks this year, except even in a more valuable sense. Tyrod Taylor's not the best quarterback play. Obviously, we'd like to see Deshaun Watson out there to help to continue elevate that ceiling. But Brandin Cooks in his own right is a veteran receiver. He's savvy. He's had multiple 1,000-yard seasons with multiple teams. He's proven himself at this point. It's not the flashiest pick to make on draft day. He might not be the flashiest wide receiver in your lineup, but this is going to be a bad football team. This is going to be a group that's passing the ball a ton. And when your other top competition is Nico Collins, a 5th-round wide receiver out of Michigan, who I like a lot and think has a lot of potential in the red zone area, but still, again, is a somewhat of a raw player and needs to develop significantly before he can really infringe upon Cooks' targets. And then the next best guy you're looking at is Chris Conley here. So you're giving me a bad football team with a roster that's going to be passing the ball a ton, trying to stay in football games late, with a seasoned vet, a proven player who has a track record of making plays and being a productive fantasy wideout. Brandin Aiyuk, this just simply comes down to the fact that I really like his usage and a potential upside in this 49ers offense. I love his 3-level route running, meaning his short route running, intermediate route running, and deep route running, his usage around the line of scrimmage in the screen game, the fact that he's used in the wide receiver run game. He does it all. To me, he is a younger, higher upside version of Robert Woods. I think he'll be incredibly consistent this season. He does have a bit of a hamstring bug right now, so if he can overcome that, this is going to be a massive season for Aiyuk, and I think he should put up big numbers for us, especially if we get Trey Lance integrated in this offense. I think that the ceiling will continue to climb, and Aiyuk's numbers should be fantastic this year. And then finally, Saquon Barkley. There will be no better time this season than right now to trade for Barkley. You're talking about a player who has RB1 overall upside. And yes, he has plenty of red flags and concerns in his fantasy profile for this season. But week 1, he's expected to be eased back into things. It's the first time we've seen him since that major ACL tear. And the healthier he gets, the more normal he gets, or the closer he gets back to normal, the higher and higher his value is going to grow. And the harder and harder it's going to be to acquire a potentially massive upside running back who might be one of the few players in the game right now that have the chance to score with any given touch. Barkley is a level higher than any other defender on the field, meaning that he, in terms of his raw athleticism, is just off the charts in terms of the competition that he's competing against and the players he has to beat. Man to man, he might be the most talented player on the field. Now, the running back position might not be the most valuable player out there, but Saquon Barkley is a freak of nature, and he can make absolutely ridiculous things happen with even just a smidge of daylight in his blocking scheme. So, Saquon, take a risk. I think that he's going to come back just fine this season. The Giants' offensive line is somewhat of a concern for me, but he's got a tough week 1 matchup. I think New York's going to struggle mightily against Denver. Even if he has a down week and you can't quite get a hold of him before week 1, fantasy managers might begin to panic. They might get scared if he has a tough outing, if things don't go their way. There's a chance that you could get yourself one of the best running backs in fantasy football this season for an incredibly discounted price, for the sole fact that there's a lot of concern right now and a lot of unknowns regarding what the overall season is going to look like from him. Alrighty, those were 10 early trade targets for this fantasy football season. Again, these players have excellent upsides, and I think that down the stretch of this season, these could be some of the names that are making the difference in our fantasy leagues and ultimately bringing home league championships for lots of teams out there. So roll the dice, play things a little bit risky every once in a while. You could come up big and make a big-time acquisition for your lineups that, again, makes that difference for you in your leagues this year. So thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace out.